The day my world tilted was the moment I heard those words tumble out of my daughter's mouth. "Mum, I'm pregnant." I stood there in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, my hands still wet from washing the breakfast dishes. The warm suds dripped onto the floor as I turned to face her, her eyes shining with a mix of nerves and excitement. It was a crisp October afternoon, the kind where the sunlight streams through the window like honey, catching the dust motes in a dance. My heart swelled. Grandchildren, a new chapter. I imagined tiny feet pattering across this old house, the smell of baby powder mingling with the lavender I kept on the sill. But beneath that joy, a whisper of doubt crept in, faint as the rustle of leaves outside. I pushed it down, smiling instead, pulling her into a hug that smelled of her coconut shampoo. "Let me take you back to how things were before that moment, back to the steady rhythm of my life. My name is Clara, and I'm a widow living in a quiet corner of Atlanta, where the magnolia trees bloom heavy and the neighbors wave from their porches. It's been 10 years since my husband, James, past cancer took him quick, leaving me with this house and a nest egg I'd saved for my golden years. My daughter, Lena, is my pride, my only child. She's 24 now, with her father's dimpled smile and my stubborn streak. After high school, she moved out for college but came back when the jobs dried up, settling into the guest room with her art supplies and late-night music. We fell into a routine mornings with coffee and toast, the buttery scent filling the air as we chatted about her sketches or my garden. I worked part-time at the library, shelving books with the soft rustle of pages, my days gentle and predictable. Lena and I were closer than most mothers and daughters I'd seen. She'd curl up on the couch with me in the evenings, a blanket draped over us, the TV flickering with old sitcoms. I'd braid her hair sometimes, her head resting against my shoulder, the quiet hum of her breathing a comfort. She had her struggles, boyfriends that didn't last, a stint of waitressing that left her exhausted, but she always bounced back with that spark in her eyes. I trusted her, leaned on her even, especially after James was gone. She'd help with groceries, her laughter echoing as we bagged apples, or sit with me on the porch swing, the creak of the chains a lullaby. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, built on love and shared history. Her boyfriend, Marcus, had been around for a year. He was a lanky guy with a quick grin, always tinkering with cars in our driveway, the scent of oil and metal drifting in. I wasn't sure about him at first. His promises seemed thin, like the paper napkins he'd leave crumpled on the table. But Lena adored him, and I wanted her happy. They'd whisper late into the night, their voices soft through her bedroom wall, and I'd smile, thinking of young love. When she told me about the pregnancy, it felt like a natural step. "I'm scared, Mom," she said, her voice trembling as she clutched my hand, her nails digging in just a little. "But I want this baby." I squeezed back, my heart full. "We'll figure it out together," I promised, already planning how to dip into my savings for a crib, maybe a little nursery in the spare room. The first hint of trouble came a week later, subtle as a shadow crossing the sun. Lena started staying out more, coming home with tired eyes and excuses about doctor appointments. "Just routine checks," she'd say, her smile tight as she stirred sugar into her tea, the spoon clinking against the mug. I noticed her phone buzzing constantly, her fingers flying over the screen. But I didn't pry. She was an adult, I told myself, cradling my own mug as the steam warmed my face. Still, something felt off: the way she avoided my questions about ultrasound pictures, the way Marcus lingered by the door instead of joining us for dinner. I'd catch her staring out the window, her brow furrowed, the soft ticking of the kitchen clock marking the silence. I brushed it aside, blaming pregnancy nerves, but that whisper of doubt grew louder, a faint drumbeat in my chest. One evening, as the sunset painted the living room in shades of orange, I found her crying in her room. The door was ajar, and I stepped in, the creak of the floorboards announcing me. Her sketchbook lay open, pages crumpled, and a tissue box sat half empty on the bed. "Lena, honey, what's wrong?" I asked, sitting beside her, the mattress dipping under my weight. She wiped her eyes, her voice shaky. "It's Marcus. He's in debt, and I don't know how to help." My stomach tightened, but I nodded, patting her hand. "We'll get through it," I said, thinking of my savings again. She leaned into me, her sobs muffled against my shoulder, and I held her, the scent of her tears mixing with the lavender sachet on her dresser. Little did I know, that moment was the calm before the storm would break. The days after, that tearful confession stretched out like a quiet road, winding with unspoken tension. I kept Lena close, my instinct as a mother kicking in, wanting to shield her from whatever storm Marcus's debts might bring. The house felt warmer then, filled with the soft clatter of pots as I cooked her favorite chicken stew, the aroma of thyme and garlic curling through the air. She'd sit at the table, sketching absent-mindedly, her pencil scratching against paper, her face a mask of concentration that didn't quite hide the worry in her eyes. I'd watch her from the stove, stirring the broth, the steam rising like a veil between us. "We'll sort this out," I'd say, my voice steady, handing her a bowl with a spoon that clinked gently against the ceramic. She'd nod, offering a small smile, but her fingers trembled as she ate, and I chalked it up to the weight of impending motherhood. Marcus came around less, his visits sporadic, the growl of his truck fading down the street more often than not. When he did show, he'd linger by the door, his boots scuffing the welcome mat, avoiding my gaze. "Just checking on her," he'd mumble, his voice rough, hands stuffed in his pockets. I'd offer coffee, the rich scent filling the kitchen, but he'd decline, his eyes darting to Lena like he was waiting for something. She'd reassure me he was just stressed, her hand brushing mine as we cleared the table, the dishes clinking softly. I wanted to believe her, to trust that this was just a rough patch, but that drumbeat of doubt grew louder, a steady rhythm beneath my everyday calm. The first real clue came on a rainy afternoon, the patter of drops against the windows, soothing backdrop as I sorted laundry. In the living room, Lena had gone to a doctor's appointment, her purse slung over her shoulder, the faint jingle of keys echoing as she left. I unfolded her jeans and a crumpled receipt fell out, fluttering to the floor like a fallen leaf. I picked it up, my fingers brushing the damp paper, and squinted at the print $45 at a local diner, dated 2 days ago, signed with Marcus's name. My brow furrowed. She'd said she was at the clinic that day, her voice bright over the phone as I asked about the baby's health. The discrepancy nagged at me, a splinter under my skin, but I set it aside, folding the receipt back into her pocket. Maybe she'd stopped for lunch after, I reasoned, the rain tapping a rhythm against the glass. Then came the phone calls. Late at night, I'd hear her whispering in her room, the murmur of her voice slipping through the walls, punctuated by sharp intakes of breath. One evening, as I passed her door with a glass of water, the floorboards creaking under my slippers, I caught fragments. "We need the money. He's pressuring me." Before she hushed herself, my hand paused on the doorknob, the cool glass sweating against my palm, but I didn't knock. Instead, I retreated to my room, the ticking clock on my nightstand marking the silence. Sleep eluded me that night, the memory of her words looping in my mind, tangled with the image of that receipt. I told myself it was nothing, that she was just planning with Marcus, but the doubt had taken root, spreading like ivy through my thoughts. A week later, the tension broke in a small, unexpected way. Lena came home with an ultrasound photo, the grainy black and white image trembling in her hands as she handed it to me. We sat on the couch, the cushions sinking under us, the faint scent of the lavender candle I'd lit earlier filling the air. "Look, Mom, it's real," she said, her voice thick with emotion, pointing to a blurry shape. I studied it, my heart lifting, but something felt off. The dates didn't align with her supposed timeline. "This is from last month?" I asked, my tone gentle, watching her face. She nodded too quickly, her eyes avoiding mine, and I felt a chill despite the warmth of the room. I didn't press, tucking the photo into my Bible on the coffee table, the leather creaking softly as I closed it. But that whisper of doubt screamed now, a siren I couldn't silence. The turning point came during a rare visit from Marcus. It was a Saturday morning. The kitchen bright with sunlight, the smell of fresh-baked biscuits wafting as I pulled them from the oven. Lena was out getting prenatal vitamins, her excuse delivered, with a tight smile. Marcus sat at the table, nursing a coffee, his fingers tapping nervously against the mug. "She's been stressed," he said, his voice low, glancing at the door. "Money's tight with the baby coming." I nodded, setting a biscuit on a plate, the butter melting into the warm dough. "I've offered my savings," I replied, watching his reaction. His eyes flickered, a quick dart of guilt, and he muttered, "That's generous," before falling silent. The air thickened, the ticking clock amplifying the unease. When he left, I found a crumpled note in his jacket pocket scribbled figures, thousands owed to someone named Tony. My hands shook as I smoothed it out, the paper crackling, and the pieces began to fit a puzzle I didn't want to solve. That night I couldn't sleep. The house was still, the only sound the distant hum of a neighbor's TV through the walls. I sat at the kitchen table, the cold wood under my elbows, staring at that note. Lena's late-night calls, her evasiveness, Marcus's debt, it all pointed to something darker. I decided to follow her the next day, my heart heavy as I grabbed my coat, the fabric rustling in the quiet. She didn't know I was behind her, as she met Marcus at a rundown cafe, their heads bent over papers, voices urgent. I watched from my car, the rain streaking the windshield, my breath fogging the glass. The truth was close now, a shadow I couldn't outrun. The next morning dawned grey, the sky heavy with clouds that mirrored the weight in my chest. I sipped my coffee at the kitchen table, the bitter brew grounding me as I watched Lena stir her cereal, the spoon clinking softly against the bowl. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Another appointment today?" I asked, my voice casual, but my hands tightened around the mug. She nodded, murmuring something about blood work, her eyes flicking to her phone as it buzzed. I smiled, but inside, the decision hardened. I'd follow her, seek the truth that nagged like a loose thread. I waited until she left, her car crunching over the gravel driveway, before grabbing my keys. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth as I slipped into my old sedan, keeping a safe distance behind her. My heart pounded, the steering wheel slick under my palms, as she turned not toward the clinic but a strip mall on the outskirts of town. She parked outside a pawn shop, the neon sign flickering in the daylight, and met Marcus in the lot. They huddled together, heads close, papers exchanging, hands. I watched from across the street, my breath shallow, the radio droning forgotten in the background. What were they doing? The doubt twisted into fear, a knot in my gut. That evening, back home, the house felt smaller, the walls closing in with unspoken questions. Lena came in flushed, claiming the appointment went well, her voice a touch too bright as she hung her coat, the fabric whispering against the hook. I nodded, but my mind raced. Over dinner, simple pasta with sauce simmering on the stove, the tangy aroma filling the air. I probed gently. "How's the baby measuring?" I asked, twirling noodles on my fork. She hesitated, her fork pausing mid-air, before describing a healthy heartbeat, her eyes not quite meeting mine. The lie hung there, subtle but sharp, like a paper cut. I let it pass, but that night, as I lay in bed, the sheets cool against my skin, I couldn't shake it. I needed proof. The following week, the clues piled up like autumn leaves. A bank statement arrived, showing a withdrawal from my account, $500, transferred to Lena's. I stared at the paper, the ink crisp and accusing, my fingers tracing the numbers. She'd asked for nursery money, and I'd given access, trusting her. But why so soon? I confronted her that afternoon, the living room bathed in soft light from the window, the curtains stirring in a breeze. "Lena, what's this transfer for?" I asked, holding up the statement, my voice even. She froze, her book slipping from her lap to the floor with a soft thud. "Just some baby stuff," she said, her cheeks coloring but her eyes darted away. The evasion stung and I pressed. Show me the receipts, she stammered, promising to later, and hurried to her room, the door clicking shut. Doubt turned to suspicion, a slow burn that kept me up nights. I noticed her avoiding mirrors, her hand rarely resting on her belly like expectant mothers do. At a family picnic with my sister, the park alive with the scent of grilled burgers and children's laughter, Lena declined rides on the swings, citing nausea, but she ate heartily, her plate piled high. My sister pulled me aside, her hand on my arm, voice low. She doesn't look pregnant, Clara. The words landed like a stone in water, rippling through me. I nodded, forcing a laugh, but inside, the pieces clicked, the ultrasound dates, the withdrawals, Marcus's note. I decided to act quietly. The next day, while Lena was out, I searched her room, my heart heavy as I opened drawers, the wood scraping softly. Under her mattress, I found a folder bills from loan sharks, Marcus's name scrawled across them, totals in the thousands. My breath caught, the paper trembling in my hands. Deeper in, a pamphlet on fake pregnancy tests, dog-eared and highlighted. The room spun, the faint scent of her perfume cloying now. No baby. Just a scheme, my savings the target. The betrayal hit like a wave, cold and crashing, leaving me gasping on the bed. I confronted her that night, the kitchen lit by a single bulb, casting long shadows. She came in humming, dropping her bag with a thud. Lena, I said, my voice steady but laced with hurt, holding up the pamphlet. There's no baby, is there? Her face paled, eyes widening, and she sank into a chair, the wood creaking. Mom, She started, voice breaking. Tears welled as she confessed Marcus's gambling debts had spiraled, threatening them both. She'd faked the pregnancy to access my retirement fund, planning to borrow and repay. I was desperate, she sobbed, her hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. The words poured out how they bought props, staged appointments, all to ease the pressure. I listened, my heart shattering, the clock ticking like a judge's gavel. You lied to me, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. For money, the rawness of it all hung in the air, her sobs filling the space. Marcus had pushed her, but she'd gone along, her fear of losing him blinding her. I felt the sting of her choices, layered with my own guilt had I been too trusting. The confrontation ended in silence, her head bowed, my arms aching to hold her butt, held back by the hurt. Confession hung in the air like smoke, thick and choking, as Lena's sobs echoed off the kitchen tiles. I stood there, frozen, the pamphlet crumpled in my fist, its edges biting into my palm. The bulb overhead hummed faintly, casting our shadows long and distorted on the floor. My mind reeled images flashing of her as a child, her tiny hand in mine at the park, the trust we'd built over years now shattered like dropped china. How could you? I whispered again, my voice cracking, tears hot on my cheeks. She looked up, her face streaked, eyes red and pleading. Mom, please. Marcus said it was temporary. We'd pay it back before you noticed. Her words cut deeper, the betrayal not just the lie, but the calculation behind it. I sank into the opposite chair, the wood cool against my legs, and demanded the full story. It spilled out in fragments, her voice halting, punctuated by hiccups. Marcus had gambled away his savings on online poker, the debts mounting like snow in winter. Collectors called day and night, their threats sharp as knives. Lena, desperate to keep him, had seen my retirement account as a lifeline. I thought if I pretended to be pregnant, you'd help without questions, she admitted, twisting a napkin in her hands, fibers tearing softly. They bought fake tests online, staged symptoms with hidden pills for nausea, even borrowed a friend's ultrasound photo. The withdrawals were for his payoffs, not a nursery. Each detail landed like a blow, my chest tightening, the room spinning slightly. I love him, Mom, she said, her voice small. I didn't want to lose everything. Anger surged then, mixed with heartbreak, a storm inside me. You used me, I said, my tone low but firm, rising from the chair. Your own mother. For him. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back, the gesture instinctive. The air between us charged. The confrontation stretched, her apologies tumbling out. I'm sorry. I'll fix it. But they rang hollow echoes in the empty space. I paced the kitchen, my slippers scuffing the linoleum, the scent of earlier dinner lingering like a ghost. Part of me wanted to scream, to banish her, but another saw the fear in her eyes, the same vulnerability she'd had as a teen after her first breakup. Marcus had manipulated her, preying on her loyalty, but she'd chosen to go along, crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. As the night wore on, the clock ticking relentlessly, I sent her to her room, needing space. Alone, I brewed tea, the kettle's whistle piercing the quiet, steam curling like my thoughts. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was the erosion of trust, the way she'd looked me in the eye and lied, week after week. My savings, hard-earned from years at the library, stacking books with aching hands, were meant for my peace, not her rescue. I cried then, silent tears into my cup, the herbal warmth doing little to soothe. By dawn, resolve hardened. I wouldn't let this destroy us, but neither would I enable it. Action was needed, clever, measured steps to reclaim what was mine and teach her the cost. First, I called my bank at opening hour, the line crackling as I explained the unauthorized transfers. The clerk's voice was sympathetic, her keys tapping as she flagged the account. We'll freeze it and investigate, she said, and I exhaled, the phone cool against my ear. Next, I contacted a counselor I knew from church, her warm tone over the line a balm. Family sessions, I requested, scheduling for us both. Lena emerged red-eyed, coffee in hand, and I laid it out calmly at the table, the morning light slanting in. No more money, I said, my voice steady. We're getting help, and you're repaying every cent through work. She nodded, tears fresh, but I saw a flicker of relief, perhaps shame. The plan unfolded over days. I helped her update her resume, the printer humming as pages spat out, her fingers hesitant on the keys. She applied for jobs waitressing again, her old fallback landing one at a diner downtown. I'll pay you back weekly, she promised, her voice earnest as she signed the agreement I'd drafted, simple words on notebook paper. Marcus was the wild card. I confronted him privately, meeting at a park bench, the wind rustling leaves around us. Stay away until she's stable, I said, my gaze firm, watching his face crumple. He admitted his addiction, voice breaking, promising to seek help. It wasn't revenge, just boundaries, clever walls to protect what remained. Inner thoughts swirled as I acted regret for not seeing her struggles sooner, anger at her choice, but a quiet determination to guide her back. Dialogue flowed in snippets. Over breakfast, I'm sorry, met with my I know, but actions matter now. The pacing was deliberate, each step a breath, mixing reflection with movement. By week's end, the first repayment came, a small check from her tips, folded neatly on the table. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The paper crisp under my fingers docked as the dust settled from our confrontation. The truth didn't stay confined to our kitchen walls, it seeped out, slow and inevitable, like water finding cracks in a dam. Lena's scheme, once a private wound, became a family matter when my sister called 2 days later, her voice sharp over the phone, the line humming with concern. Clara, what's going on? Lena posted about job hunting on social media, said something about starting fresh. I sighed, stirring my tea, the spoon clinking as I explained the bare bones. No, baby, debts, my savings tapped. Her gasp was audible, followed by a rush of questions, her worry laced with judgment. How could she? She echoed my own thoughts, and I felt the isolation lift a fraction, but also the sting of exposure. Word spread through our tight-knit circle, the kind where news travels on, whispers at church potlucks, or over fences in the neighborhood. At the library, my coworker pulled me aside in the stacks, the scent of old books enveloping us, her hand on my arm. Heard about Lena, she said softly, eyes kind but curious. If you need time off. I nodded, forcing a smile, the weight of pity pressing down. The community, once a comfort, now felt like a mirror reflecting our flaws. Lena faced it head-on at her new job. The diner buzzed with locals, and one regular, an old friend of James's, leaned over the counter one shift, his coffee steaming. "No baby after all, huh?" he asked, voice gruff but not unkind. She flushed, her notepad trembling, and later told me how she'd muttered, "It's complicated," before retreating to the kitchen, the sizzle of fries masking her tears. Marcus bore the brunt, his reputation crumbling like dry soil. His garage buddies heard through the grapevine Lena's posts, my sister's chats, and confronted him at a bar, the clink of glasses underscoring their accusations. "Dragging her into your mess," one said, his tone hard. Marcus lost gigs, his phone going silent, the isolation forcing him to face his addiction. He checked into a free clinic program. His calls to Lena sparse now, voice humbled. The moral consequences weighed heavy. Friends distanced, invitations dried up. At a family gathering my sister hosted, the backyard alive with the scent of barbecue, eyes lingered on Lena, whispers behind hands. She sat apart, picking at her plate, the plastic fork bending under pressure. "I deserve it," she told me later, her voice low as we drove home, the car humming along the dark road. The fallout touched deeper, into our extended family. My brother flew in from out of state, his suitcase thumping in the hall, face etched with concern. Over coffee the next morning, the aroma rich and grounding, he listened as I poured it out, the fake tests, the withdrawals, Lena's tears. "She needs tough love," he said, his hand steady on mine. But his eyes held disappointment. He spoke to her privately in the living room, the murmur of voices drifting to me in the kitchen, the clock ticking steadily. She emerged red-eyed, but with a nod of resolve. The truth spread brought judgment, but also support. A cousin sent articles on financial counseling, her email pinging late one night, the screen glowing in the dark. In the neighborhood, the whispers were subtler but persistent. The lady next door, pruning her roses, the clippers snipping sharply, leaned over the fence. "Everything okay with Lena?" Saw her at the diner, looks worn out. I shared a sanitized version, the sun warm on my back, feeling the vulnerability of our lives laid bare. Lena's social circle shrank. Friends, who'd congratulated her on the pregnancy, now ghosted, their silence a quiet condemnation. One confronted her outright at a coffee shop, the espresso machine hissing in the background. "You lied to us all," the friend asked, voice rising. Lena apologized, her latte cooling untouched, the encounter leaving her shaken but reflective. The consequences weren't cruel, just real lost trust, strained ties, a mirror to her actions. Marcus faced job loss, his boss citing reliability issues after rumors reached the garage, the scent of grease lingering on his clothes as he packed his tools. Lena's repayments continued, small envelopes on the table each Friday, the paper crisp with her earnings. The public eye forced growth. She volunteered at a debt support group, her stories shared in circles, voices soft and empathetic. Dignity guided me. I didn't broadcast the details, letting the truth unfold naturally, emphasizing justice through accountability, not vengeance. Through it all, the moral weight settled. Lies erode foundations, but facing them rebuilds stronger ones. The community's reaction, though painful, pushed us toward change. A quiet justice in the everyday, fallout. With the truth laid bare, and the ripples fading, healing came not in a rush but in quiet steps, like dawn creeping over the horizon. I focused on rebuilding, my days anchored in routine, the library's hush, the soft turn of pages, a reminder that life turns on despite the storms. Lena threw herself into her job, the diner's clatter of plates and orders a backdrop to her growth. She'd come home weary, her apron smelling of fried onions, but with a check in hand, placed gently on the table. "Another payment," she'd say, her voice soft, eyes meeting mine now without evasion. I'd nod, folding it away, the paper a symbol of her effort. Our family counseling sessions became the bridge. Dr. Hayes's office warm with potted plants and a ticking clock, her voice gentle as we unpacked the layers. Trust rebuilds with time, she'd say, her pen scratching notes, and we talked Lena's fears of abandonment after James's death, my own enabling out of loneliness. Tears flowed, tissues crumpling, but so did laughter, faint at first, over shared memories. Marcus faded into the background, his program keeping him away, the occasional call to Lena brief and accountable. She ended things quietly, her decision shared over tea one evening, the steam rising between us. He wasn't good for me, she admitted, her hands steady around the mug. I reached across, our fingers linking, the warmth a quiet affirmation. She moved out gradually, into a small apartment downtown, her boxers thumping down the stairs, the house echoing emptier but lighter. I helped her furnish it a thrift store lamp, its glow soft in the new space, the scent of fresh paint mingling with hope. Our bond shifted, stronger for the Scars' weekly dinners where we'd cook together, the sizzle of vegetables in the pan underscoring honest talks. I found peace in small joys. Tending my garden, the earth cool under my fingers, blooms unfurling like second chances. Church friends rallied, their hugs at services smelling of perfume and support, reminding me I wasn't alone. My savings recovered slowly, the bank's reversal a relief, the statements crisp in my hands. Lena's repayments continued, each one a step toward closure, her pride growing with every envelope. We volunteered together at a women's shelter, the chatter of residents a hum as we sorted donations, her stories inspiring others. I messed up. She'd share in group sessions, voice steady and I'd watch, heart swelling with quiet pride. The moral settled deep. Accountability mends what deception breaks, turning pain into wisdom. Forgiveness wasn't forgetting. It was choosing love with eyes open. By spring, our home felt renewed, laughter echoing again, the wounds healed into scars. That told our story. Looking back on those turbulent months, as I sit here in my garden now, the sun warming the soil under my hands and the faint buzz of bees in the air, I see how far we've journeyed. Lena's fully on her own these days, her apartment a cozy nest of her own making, filled with her artwork on the walls and the scent of fresh coffee when I visit. She's paid back every cent, her checks arriving like clockwork. But more than that, she's grown taking classes on financial literacy, volunteering to help others avoid the pitfalls she fell into. Marcus faded away, finding his own path in recovery, and while the hurt lingers like a faint scar, it doesn't define us. Our bond, mother and daughter, is deeper now, forged in honesty and hard lessons. We share laughs over dinner, her hand on mine without the weight of secrets, and I feel a quiet peace, knowing we've turned betrayal into a foundation stronger than before. The heart of it all is this. Deception might offer a quick escape, but it poisons the well of trust we all drink from. Accountability, though painful, cleanses it, teaching us that true love holds us responsible, not just cherished. I chose dignity over destruction, guiding her back with firm hands and an open heart, and in doing so, found my own strength renewed. If you've walked a similar road, faced a loved one's lie that shook your world, how did you find the balance between justice and mercy? Would you have cut ties, or fought to rebuild like I did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories might light the way for someone else in the dark. And if these tales resonate, subscribe for more real-life reflections. Every week, let's keep nurturing our hearts together. Take care out there.